man, color commentator on the Rider Broadcast Network, Luc Mullinder, is on the Western Pizza guest hotline. Western Pizza, where you make bets and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Hey, is that a bye-week beard? What do you got? You're growing? Was that the plan?
No, man, I actually don't know where this is going. You know, I've left it around for a while. It's been convenient because I'm in and out a lot of meetings. So, you know, not having to take the time to shave or whatever has been saving me, 20 minutes here and there. So we'll figure this out.
What if you're not watching the stream, Luke's got he's got some good growth. What's the longest? Have you ever had a long beard?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've done the beard before. It's not at the length it was at the time, but I have a feeling it's going to get back there.
Man, that's itchy. It just looks itchy.
No, brother. You gotta do it right. I got some beard oil. I've got
nice.
Conditioner routine for it, right? Like, yeah, you can't just, if you're gonna have a beard, it just can't have like food, all through it and bugs and stuff. You got to keep it clean.
I've never had one. I can easily grow a beard, obviously. I've had a mustache, and that is a sight. If me with a muzzer, it's class. It gets itchy.
I've never just had a mustache. Well, actually, I have, but I didn't like it.
Okay, let's get into. We can get back on the beard thing. You got to keep that growing. We'll get a beard update every week. The Trevor Harris comments, you were standing by when we played it. I don't know how much you're with the team, you're with the guys and all that. What's your take on everything? Jordan Williams, the handshake before, what he said to them. You're a former defensive guy, Luke. How do you wrap it all up?
Well, it was definitely a late hit that Trevor got. But as far as all the extracurricular conversations that were going on during the plays before and then the plays after, I've never really been involved in a situation where they're like, okay, yeah, you got something coming to you, and then the team actually carries it through. I mean, you gotta remember that. I mean, there's far more things. You can't just go out and exact revenge the next play. You've got to have the right play call, right? You've got to have the things have got to work out. You got to win your pass rush move or whatever it is. So I felt like that was just a defensive line stunt called at the right time. I'm not sure if they called it. Any coach that calls a defensive line stunt other than trying to get the ball out or sack the quarterback. If you call a defensive line stunt to hurt the opposing quarterback, you're not going to be a very successful defensive coordinator moving forward, right? So I'm not sure where we fall on the malicious side. I think the tempers were running hot, and the Toronto Argonauts, they executed a defensive line stunt that worked out for them. It was just a little bit late.
Do you think Jordan Williams kind of takes that on his own? Do you think he goes rogue on this?
No. Oh. During the play? Yeah, maybe, right? Maybe. I mean, again, tempers are running high. The Argos aren't a very good football club right now in the first 4 weeks, right? And that probably has a lot. I mean, it wasn't like they were playing well that game either, right? So I'm sure that there was a lot of emotions and things go into it. I mean, the problem with it on the Rider Nation side is you lose your quarterback for one game. Fortunately, it was before the bye week, and he's back and he's practicing, but could have been a lot worse. Glad it wasn't.
I can't be hypocritical because, like I said, I'm an eye for an eye guy a lot of times. Maybe it's
You're
not the right
hockey guy though, man. That's how those guys work. You guys are crazy, man. You guys are literally. I've never seen a sport. I mean, you got like if something happens to one of the marquee guys, both coaches make the decision to put the fourth lines out and just figure it out from there. That's hockey's crazy like that.
I was going to say maybe it's maybe at times I could be accused of it's not the right parenting. Also, because it trickles down where Mrs. S is definitely not an eye for an eye. She's a forgiving person where I'm like, I don't know. No, and for Trevor to kind of massage the words the way he does, but that handshake and what was said there, he probably knew something was coming. Again, going back to hockey or football or whatever. A lot of times you use the the words, you use the verbal terrorism to just get in the person's kitchen. It might never happen. It might never, but to your point, it happens the next play. Trevor probably knew he had to keep his head on a swivel if possible.
Well, look at the play that we're talking about. I mean, that's just a defensive line coming back underneath and going and getting a, albeit late hit on the quarterback. But if it's blocked up, he doesn't even get there, right? It's the whole thing about when, when I remember in 2014, the Riders lost Darian Durant to injury, right? And at that time it was like, oh, it was malicious, it was this, it was that. And I'm sitting there thinking about like, well, I mean, the first point of emphasis is probably we got to block a little bit better, right? So again, I don't know if, and I'm not saying that the blocking was the reason why Trevor Harris got hurt. I'm just saying that there was a lot more that went into that play. It wasn't just somebody like hanging around and then as soon as the ball's thrown, like waiting till everybody else left and then getting a cheap shot on Trevor Harris. He did it pretty close to within the rules.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. What are you making of Samuel Emilus? And he's out there today, but not participating full. This is obviously worse than we thought 3 weeks ago. What are you making there?
Yeah, anytime you have a player miss the game and then the bye week, it's obviously a little bit more concerning. I think that I was not heartbroken, but I was really upset and disappointed to hear that Trayvon Tate was in a sling today. He's been one of my favorite riders to watch in this very young season. So I'm just hoping that Sam Emilus can, get healthy, but more importantly, when you look at the game plan and you look at some of the things that the Riders have done well, he's been a critical piece and he's made some big plays, but they've also won without him. Right. And that's where I think, again, all credit goes. Last game, I mean, it seems like eons ago now, against the BC Lions. One of the things that I said after the game was one of the unsung heroes was Mark Mueller. I thought he called a great game. We had a backup quarterback in there. Granted, the backup quarterback had a ton of experience, but I thought Mark Mueller did the best he could to put that quarterback in winning situations and in situations where he couldn't get the team in trouble, where he could just manage his way through. And I think that that's what you got to do at Calgary. Calgary's going to come in here. They look very good, especially up front. But again, you're going to have to build the pieces around this offense. So we're going to need a good run game. We're going to need some quick hitters. And then hopefully we can get the field stretching plays that we're used to seeing from Sam Emilus. It just happens to be that we'll have to get them from somewhere else.
It sounds like Thomas Bertrand-Hudon, we got an injury there. If I was betting, if I was wagering, and probably saying he's not going this week, which would open up the Kadeem Carey if they can figure out the ratio maybe on the offensive line there. I don't think we miss a beat then come running game, and it's just another thing for Calgary to prepare for.
Yeah, so I think that we got to remember when Trayvon Tate checked out, they went into their injury situation or their injury lineup from that point on. They had to adjust a couple things. They had to adjust the original front five, and then they had to figure out if they were going to use their big tight end set that Zach Fry was usually the tight end in. They had to figure out who was going to play that tight end spot again. I mean, they've had a week and something to prepare now to where they knew that Tate was not going to be around. So I would imagine that Zach Fry probably gets the start at left guard, and then they go from there. But again, Fry's played a lot of football, and you're right. You're going to have to win up front. The one thing, I didn't see all of the Calgary game. I saw a lot of it. The one thing, though, that I did that was notable was in successful offensive plays or successful defensive plays for the Calgary Stampeders, they were playing really well up front. Their offensive line and their defensive line were playing physically dominating football. So you're going to have to come into this game with a little bit of that 2008, 2009, 2010 attitude when Calgary was at its height and playing incredibly well up front. I mean, you look at some of the throws that Vernon Adams was able to make last week, there was a ton of time there that he had to sit in the pocket and go through his progressions. So the Saskatchewan Roughriders are going to have to figure their way through that. Up front, again, you're going to have to run the football. Let's continue to get our quarterbacks in manageable situations, right? 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6.
The bye week, going back to your playing days, does it vary for guys? Would some guys have scrammed 4th of July weekend down south, right? Like, let's be honest, that's next level stuff. Fireworks, here we go. A lot of guys, would they have gone out of town, do you think? You know, how did you handle it back in your playing days?
Yeah, it depends. It depends when the bye week fell, right? I think that if the bye week fell a little bit later on in the season, guys would try to stick around, and obviously you were thinking about playoff runs at that point. I would think, or I would assume that a lot of guys had probably gone home this bye week just because it was the first major break since training camp began for this team, right? They had a couple days here and there, but nothing extensive. So I think that guys probably would have capitalized on an opportunity to get home and seen their loved ones here this week, and maybe save. I mean, you remember too, here's the other thing. I didn't get 3 bye weeks when I was playing in the league, right? And we only got 2. So you probably would assume that one of these bye weeks that's going to come up. I mean, you've got 4 games now till your next one. You'll still be in summertime there. Does that equate to maybe a team fishing trip for the fellas that stay back in Saskatchewan? And then the last one that's prior to playoffs and everything else, that would be one I would also anticipate a lot of folks staying around and getting ready to make a run. And with the way the Saskatchewan Roughriders are taking advantage of their opportunity, opportunities so far, hopefully it's a championship run.
You know a good fishing lodge? Is he trying to pitch something here for the fellas, or?
Well, I listen. I don't know. I know 2 things. I know every time our teams went on a fishing trip, it was one of the best things that we could have done for the guys in terms of team bonding. You want to get as close as possible, especially in Saskatchewan, right? There's not a lot of things to do in Regina. I know everybody always gets butthurt when people say that, but like, come on, guys, we're not going to the hookah lounge every Friday. Like, it gets cumbersome, you know. So the more guys can take advantage of like getting out and getting away and being together while doing that, those were probably the best team building exercises that we went through. And the other thing around that is that it didn't matter what fishing trip we went on, nobody would catch a fish other than Neil Hughes, so the Métis Missile. So he was always our guy in being the fishing guide. No, seriously, everybody would go out in a boat. Nobody would catch anything. The rest of them would just stay back playing beer pong or whatever. And then Neil's turn to go in the boat would come. He would go out, come back with like 15 fish, and piss everybody off. He was magic, man. He still is.
Knows what he's doing. Hey, I want to go to the Prairie Land Rentals text line here because Kelly texted in, and I don't know. I've actually wondered this myself because it's changed so many times. It changes from league to league. I don't know the rule. He wants to know, can you tell me the rule when a player takes his helmet off on the field of play? I thought that was a penalty. Do you know what the current rule is?
I think that if a player gets his helmet removed, he's got to try to stop himself from playing. And if he doesn't, that's a penalty. I believe that's a penalty if you take your helmet off in the field of play while something's happening, normally a fracas. But I'm pretty sure that is a penalty if you remove your helmet.
That's what I thought.
Aggressively, and go from there.
Okay, let's close. You mentioned it a bit. What did you make of the last week in the CFL? Hey, I don't think a lot of people had Calgary laying that on Winnipeg. Edmonton's in the win column, although they kind of Vernon Adams. I won my bet under Ford being out. BC. Narrowly over Montreal in Montreal. What did you make of the week?
Well, I felt like obviously or scoring in general seems to be up right now. I'm not sure what the stat is, right? I'm not sure about offensive scoring, but I know scoring's up. And the reason I bring that up is teams have got to tighten up on special teams. You're seeing all sorts of game changing plays, and Saskatchewan's been great because of this, but you're seeing all sorts of field flipping plays on special teams. So teams have to tighten up there. One of the other things that I've seen, and I mentioned it in Calgary, there's been some good offensive line play, especially when it comes to protecting the quarterback. And I know that if you look over probably the last couple of years, sacks have been down a little bit. But this year, it just seems like some of these plays the quarterbacks are making are really set up by just fantastic offensive line play. So that's why I'm probably looking forward to Calgary, Saskatchewan the most. I'm not sure what the power rankings are right now. I'm sure it's probably Calgary and Saskatchewan being 1 and 2. But more importantly, the reason this reminds me of a game that potentially feels like one of those back in the day games when Joffrey Reynolds and John Cornish and Calgary were running the football really well. I think that we've got two offensive lines that are going to be battling for bragging rights after Friday. I'm excited about it, man. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm glad to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form.
So you're thinking Calgary, even though they did lay it out. Calgary's a better football team than Winnipeg. Would you rank them like that right now?
Well, yeah. Well, who has Winnipeg over Calgary right now after that? Nobody, right? And by the way, I know that it was the cool thing to do to make fun of like the trophy game that they did, the Stampede. I think that's I thought it was a great idea. I love the Stampede Bowl idea. And here's why I love it. I come from Michigan State University. We had like 4 trophy games back in the day with Michigan State. We had the Tin Cup. We had the brass spittoon. We had a trophy game, obviously with Little Brother, the school down the road. We had the megaphone games with Notre Dame, Penn State. We had a trophy game. Like those games just mean so much more as a youngster when you're playing in college. And I think that's what the CFL or the intent was, to emulate some of that feel for the Canadian Football League. I'm so tired of folks just sort of crapping on the creative ideas that we're trying to expand to in the Canadian Football League. Like some of them may seem corny, but man, like we're trying, right? We're trying as a league, and I'm not sure what people want. Do you just stop trying altogether so you can get a better reaction on social media? Or do you go out? Do you think outside the box? I thought it was a great idea. I loved it.
I didn't even think about that.
But I don't think Calgary's not better. I think Calgary is far and away better than Winnipeg right now. I mean, the scoreboard showed it.
Yeah, just trap games.
That's two pick sixes. Listen, that Winnipeg team has been to like 4 Grey Cups in a row. There's no trap games with it. They've been there, done that. They've seen every situation. They knew what they were walking into in McMahon Stadium or whatever they call it these days. And they knew that was going to be listen, if anybody knows that teams get up for trophy games, it's Winnipeg. Because that Banjo Bowl trophy, that thing is like the Lord of the Rings ring to Gollum for them. Right? Saskatchewan, we sit here and we're like, oh no, the game doesn't mean anything. When they win that game, the Labor Day game, Willie Jefferson is parading that trophy around like it's the Stanley Cup. So if any team in the Canadian Football League knew what it meant to Calgary that game, it was the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And they did not match the energy that Calgary brought, and the score showed it. So of course Calgary's over Winnipeg right now. I'd be shocked if anybody else had Winnipeg over Calgary in any type of power ranking standings.
We know when there's a trophy on the line though. The Bombers lately, sometimes they just don't show up. I don't know.
Well, hey, I think that Banjo Bowl trophy though, man, they go crazy for that. I've been there. I see they bring it out early, right? Especially right, and man, the first thing they do when that game over is Willie Jefferson beelines into that stupid Banjo Bowl trophy and then parades it around like it's the Stanley Cup, like it's a newborn child.
See, I got to see. I guess I'll see Friday. I'll see Friday if I'm buying this Calgary stock. Because,
me too.
Because
that's the best part.
Last year, Saskatchewan was a much better team than Edmonton. Edmonton came in here and beat us. That is
listen,
weird.
it's what they say. It's any given football Saturday or Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Or in this case, Friday. Any given Friday, you got to come out and you got these guys. And that saying, right, Barney? These guys get paid too, right? Like everybody's a professional, and it's early on in the season. Anything can happen, right? And I think that what's nice is we're seeing the West just being really competitive. We're hoping the East comes along as well, right? You hope that that Montreal can get their starting quarterback back and get back on the hop. But right now, I mean, we've seen some good football, and that's all we can hope for. And I think that Friday has got potential to be one of the best games of this first third of the year.
I'm looking forward to seeing the tarp. You got the nicest tarps in the league, and but now you got to match the tarp with the beard. So I'm very curious how you're gonna do that.
Right. You know what? I have to consider that. I might have to go over to Colin O'Brien's and tell Aaron to get me something that blends in a little bit with the silverback beard I got going. I'll figure it out, man. I won't let you down, Barney.
You keep it going. You got to keep it going now, right? We're on a winning streak.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Now it's like the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? Now it's just like,
I love it. All right, buddy. Thanks for doing this. Have a good call.
Right.
Have a good week.
See you then.